Hey, Pet Service Pros, this is your host, Anthony Flores. Before we get to the show, I would like to personally extend an invitation for you to join us at Pierre.fm. Pierre is a pet service marketplace that helps pet service stores accept bookings through our website and super simple to use mobile app. Just think, guys, Expedia for pet services. It's free to join. There are no setup fees, no minimums. You only pay when you get orders, and you can cancel our service anytime. Guys, consumer behavior is changing and consumers expect a simple and transparent way to book your services. Whether you're an established pet service store and looking to stay ahead of the game or new to the pet service industry, Pierre can help you to grow your business. To learn more, visit us at Pierre.fm today. Pierre.fm. Now let's get to the show.
From the Pierre headquarters in Los Angeles, Pierre presents The Shift, a pet services podcast. A show where pet service pros learn the latest trends in design, marketing, technology, and the stories from other pet industry entrepreneurs and the businesses they built.
The Shift.
Let's go!
Is your dog struggling with allergies, fatigue, or signs of aging? Do you feel as if there's more that you can do, but you're not quite sure where to start? We're back, and I'm Anthony Flores, and today we're speaking to Dr. Jessica Wilson of Just Food for Dogs, a human-grade whole food pet company that is helping pets all over the country recover and overcome countless amounts of health conditions. If you go to their website, you'll see what I'm talking about. We will also discuss the current state of the dog food industry, oral hygiene, and why you should consider transitioning your dogs to a whole food diet today. Jessica is a very, very interesting and inspiring person. And for those of you that aspire to become a vet and really live life on your own terms, you're going to absolutely love this interview. We hope you enjoy the show. Dr. Jessica Wilson, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
We finally pinned you down.
After many, many, many months, got to figure out how long it's actually been.
I know. I'd love to see your calendar. What does that look like?
It's madness. It kind of looks like an organized tornado. Yeah.
Really?
It's just a whirlwind.
Wow.
But lots of fun things on there.
We follow you on Instagram, and I'm always trying to kind of keep up. Like, where is she at today?
Yeah. And it's any given day. It could be I'm on a plane, I'm driving, on the road in LA or elsewhere. It's a fun gig, I'll have to say, and it takes me places. But yeah, you never know where I'll be.
I see you, like the way that you've created your Instagram, it's almost like you have work, kind of hobby, personal, all in one. Is that intentional? Are you kind of working on like kind of building a personal brand?
Yeah, it's a little bit intentional only because of my time management or lack thereof when it comes to media. I thought about making a separate veterinary page many years ago and thought, well, I don't know that I'll realistically have the time to manage all of this. So let's just start slowly introducing my vet life into my athlete page, which is truly why I started the account. No, actually take that back. Started it just as a personal account, became an athlete, started to incorporate everything athletic into that page. And then little by little started adding some veterinary elements and some veterinary medical elements a few years back. But it's definitely mostly an athlete page.
It's a lifestyle
But
too.
It's a lifestyle page.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. So do you get vets that reach out to you and they're like, wow, are they?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. In fact, I've been able to fulfill one of the many goals. I've got lots of goals. One of the many goals is to reach out to as many vets as I can from the standpoint of health and wellness for themselves. So I've had many veterinarians that have reached out to me to ask me questions on how I do it all or tips on how they can make their lives better when it comes to health and wellness. Also asking me medical advice, colleague to colleague, which is really cool. My background is actually in dentistry and oral surgery before I landed in nutrition. We haven't even started talking about that topic yet.
Yeah, we'll go into some depth.
Yeah, but I went straight into a residency in dentistry and oral surgery after I finished my internship after medical school. And that was my specialty for a really long time. It still is. And so I get lots of inquiries in regards to that. I used to post a lot more about oral health in dogs and cats, but had to veer away due to the graphic nature of the content sometimes.
You've got to be super creative, right?
Yeah.
To make that look cool.
To make it look cool and it be educational, not gross people out a little too much, because man, I saw the worst of the worst. And so, get lots of inquiries on that from vets. And then just, everyday people as well. So I just want to help people be their best selves.
Let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Let's go into your backstory a bit. Give us some backstory on where you were raised and why did you decide to become a vet? Was there something that you experienced where you said, hey, because I personally don't know any vets at all on a personal level as far as people that I've grown up with or someone that went that route. How did you kind of fall into becoming a veterinarian?
Oh man, I was the kind of stereotypical kid that knew she wanted to be an animal doctor, because I couldn't say the word veterinarian that young, but I very vividly remember at around 4 years old, my first memories of truly grasping memories of knowing I want a cat. And I'm a crazy cat lady, by the way. I love dogs, but I'm a crazy cat lady. And I was born in New York City, raised in the Bronx, and there was a little grocery store right underneath our apartment building. And there was a mama cat that was always knocked up. Back in the 80s, spaying and neutering wasn't as prevalent as it is today, of course, with population control. But she always had kittens and I always wanted one. And my mom conceded and finally said, sure, let's do this. Let's see what happens. And so I got my first kitty, and that bond was incredible. And I mean, she didn't like me very much, but I loved her. That was the beginning of me being able to nurture that role as the provider for those that, in my opinion, or maybe not opinion, actually fact, they can't communicate to us, or people aren't as in tune with them as I would like them to be, or as maybe they would like to be. But I was finally able to nurture that relationship with this kitty. And that was it. I just knew. I knew intuitively from the depths of my soul, the comprehension I had as a 4-year-old, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be their guardians. I'm going to take care of them in any capacity I can. And I had a lot of pushback from my mom, my family in general. Veterinary medicine wasn't seen as a legitimate profession. They were more so focused on the term doctor, right? Or professional. And part of it is cultural. I'm of Dominican descent, Dominican Republic. And so I'm a first generation Dominican American. And again, that focus for my family was, oh, you want to be a real doctor. You want to be an MD, or you want to be a lawyer, or you want to be some kind of professional of that accolade. But veterinary medicine, that wasn't really seen as a serious part of an adult world.
It's not a cakewalk to become a veterinarian either, right?
Oh, no. So for those of you who don't know, since we are appealing to a different demographic, normally I talk to lots of vets and I talk to lots of other, but for everybody out there, let me tell you what medical school is like for a veterinarian. So, of course, you have to complete your undergraduate degree. And there are a few universities around the world that don't absolutely require a degree, but you have to fulfill certain prerequisites, and they're the same as human medicine. Then you apply, you get in, hopefully, realize as well there aren't as many veterinary medical schools as human medical schools, so it's definitely more competitive. So you hope to get in right away, and if you don't, like me, it took me 3 years in a row of applying. You'll get in eventually, hopefully. 4 years of intensive study, 3 years that are preclinical, meaning it's all the textbook stuff and the lab stuff, all of that knowledge base. And then your 4th year, you're thrown into the real world at a university clinic setting. And that is where you can stop after graduating, but there are some individuals that decide, all right, I don't want to go straight into practice, whether it's large animal, cats, cattle and sheep, or small animal, which is typically your cats and dogs. You can do an internship, specialty internship, or you can do a residency for additional training. And that's the route I went, where not only was I responsible for knowing about every single species on the planet upon graduating, but also I decided, all right, I want to pursue an internship. It's going to give me more experience, and that'll prepare me for my residency, which was in dentistry and oral surgery.
So do you have to log at X amount of hours too, like during your residency? Or
Yeah, during the residency, for sure. Every residency is different. Every program is different, whether it's internal medicine, ophthalmology, cardiology, dentistry, in my case. They're all a little bit different as far as the prerequisites, but yeah, you have to log a certain number of hours or a certain number of cases. So really intensive, and then publish research papers and all this other background stuff. So it's a lot of work.
So do you remember the first day that you were actually, this is the real deal, it's hands-on,
oh, man.
Let's go?
Yeah, very vividly. It was my internship, and I did my internship at Verg, which is in Brooklyn, New York. And I very, very vividly remember, all right, newbie doctor, it was a class of us, about 7 or 8 of us, newbie doctor, and there are emergencies that need attention stat, and it's your role. You're the doctor. You are the responsible one.
Whoa.
So that's when I discovered emergency medicine's not for me, but I realized that very early on. But yeah, that was the first real, oh man, they're paging for a doctor. Stat, that's you. You can't ask for help. This is happening.
During this process, do you have mentors and stuff like that?
Course.
Was there anyone that was just totally key for you to help you kind of make it through?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, throughout veterinary medical school, definitely you have mentors, and some are faculty that you gravitate toward, and some are, become friends, or some are upperclassmen. Same, during my internship year, the owner of the practice, Brett Levitsky, he was integral in helping me build that confidence, as well as the rest of the staff. And I've had other mentors prior to that, but for that year, he was integral in toughening us up with lots of humor, lots of practical knowledge. So it was a really cool experience for me. Terrifying.
That sounds terrifying.
Really cool. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. No, it made me better.
Let's go back a little. So the way that we met, you and Sean Buckley,
yes,
the founder of Just Food for Dogs, you guys were on a panel. There was a couple things that I recall that Sean had mentioned, and he had discussed your food, and that it's made in the same kitchens as some of, I want to say like Trader Joe's or something like that, and some of these bigger companies. And your food is human grade, basically, versus a lot of the stuff that we see today, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that was PetCon, and I can't remember. I think I had just hopped off a plane. Now that I think about it, I had just hopped off a plane from crazy. Maybe it was New York. I really don't remember, because that's what my schedule's like. But I knew I agreed, all right, let's go to PetCon. I'll drive up to LA. But yeah, we met at PetCon, and it was a wonderful expo with a lot of different companies, a lot of different vendors. But yeah, we got to talk on that panel about pet food. And yeah, all of our foods, all of our recipes at Just Food for Dogs, we make them all ourselves. So we have our own actual kitchens. And what Sean was referring to is that we utilize the same ingredients that you and I could consume. So USDA certified human grade, human edible ingredients, and our meat, and that could have been what he was referring to. Our meats actually are sourced. A company called West Prime Meat is who we use. But yeah, they deliver to other very well-known food establishments for people, Disneyland, Slater's, maybe Trader Joe's, and then they deliver at us as well. So what we're feeding our pets, if you're feeding Just Food for Dogs, we could eat it. It would be safe to do so, and you wouldn't have to worry about the things that go wrong in the pet food industry, because we don't even dabble with it. Mm-hmm. We only use stuff that's safe for us to eat.
That's interesting, because I think about my own dog, and I'm really careful what I feed him, but I don't treat myself the same way. I actually bought Jessica a veggie plate because we'll get into her other, is that a hobby job. Or is that I wouldn't even say it's a hobby.
It's not a hobby anymore.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
It's taken on a life of its own, but I don't know if I'd sit there and eat that personally. I should, though.
You should.
I mean, it's tomatoes. You've got some broccoli, some carrots. I eat that, and then I'm like, oh, shit, I'm still hungry.
Mm-hmm. That means you just need to eat more of it. Yeah.
I'll eat the whole freaking thing. So tell us about your role at, can I refer to Just Food for Dogs as JFFD?
Yeah,
is that
JFFD.
cool?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I may flip flop back and forth, but
okay.
yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
Just so that you guys know. So tell us about your role at JFFD.
All right. So my role is that my official title is Veterinary Outreach Trainer. And what that encompasses is education. So my role is to travel wherever I'm needed within the United States to provide education for our own nutrition consultants. So if you go to a Just Food for Dogs kitchen or a JFFD kitchen, you're going to find individuals that are trained by a veterinarian, meaning myself or Dr. Chavez, who used to do the training. He's our chief medical officer, but I educate them on the pet food industry, on why we do things the way we do them, on how to make the proper recommendation for your pet in regards to dietary needs from our recipes. So that's my role. I also provide training to veterinarians, go to veterinary clinics, do lunch and learn. So we get them lunch and then I train them for an hour or a little bit more. Any veterinary conferences that I'm able to make it to, and we have it's a team. So this is definitely a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Then, I'm there if I can make it. I was just in San Antonio for the Southwest Veterinary Conference, and Texas is ready for Just Food for Dogs. I'll say that. Oh yeah. That's part of my role, as well as providing education for our other partners like Petco and Pet Food Express. A lot of what I do goes into education.
I was at, I think it's Pet Food Express. Mm-hmm. It's on Olympic here in LA. Is that Pet Food Express? You guys have a booth in the back.
Oh, it might be our DTLA pantry.
No. This is going towards
different?
kind of towards the Beverly Hills area.
Okay.
It's right kind of off Robertson. Is it? I think it is. It might be Pet Food Express.
It might be.
They have locations in everywhere. The Bay Area.
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
That's Pet Food Express.
That's Pet Food Express, yep.
And they were quite knowledgeable about your food too, because I went in there, I actually feed my dog Primal, and we had discussed that, heavy on protein, and they had mentioned that Just Food for, the first thing they mentioned was Just Food for Dogs. And they were super, they knew, I can tell that they were educated on the product.
Yeah.
Where I didn't get that feeling with a lot of the other brands inside the store.
Yeah.
Is that something that is that part of you onboarding these stores is educating them? And what is there ongoing education too as you guys start to expand?
Absolutely. So we provide an academy. So it's actually a formal course. Now, Pet Food Express, due to just the nature of location, so I usually will travel up north to Oakland. That's where they're based out of. And I will hold an academy there. And it's a full day, a little condensed version of our academy for our own consultants. But about every 4 to 6 weeks, I'll make a trip up. And then we also do the same in our SoCal area. So those individuals are getting that knowledge base directly from me. Or again, when Dr. Chavez used to do the education from him. So we're very, very, very adamant about making sure that they have that knowledge, that background. And if Just Food for Dogs is the right option for that pet, they have that knowledge base that they can inform that pet parent. So yeah, we focus a lot on education. And if there are new things that occur, new research, we want to get them back into that academy as soon as is feasible to provide that knowledge for them. So I'm excited to hear that feedback.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I was really blown away, and you guys have obviously done a good job. How do you do this in scale? I mean, because it seems that you guys are growing. I'm starting to see your stuff at more and more stores. I travel a lot too. Is this something that are you guys continuing to grow? And then what do you think your role is going to look like in the next year or two?
Oh man, and I've been thinking about that actually. Not something I've discussed out loud or anything, but yeah, the company is growing exponentially, so much so that this was a concern. And I remember when I was interviewed by Sean, I've only been with Just Food for Dogs. It's almost a year in November.
Wow.
So it's not been that long compared to everyone else, but it's still a company it's less than 10 years old. It's almost 9 years old in January. And his concern was, oh man, we're growing fast. And,
Yeah.
and I'm praying, I'm hoping we're going to be able to keep up. We're keeping up for sure. But as far as getting this to scale, we do have online modules. That's more for the veterinarians, where, all right, let's say you are out, mid-California, middle of the state. Maybe I can't get to you because my schedule's booked. I can send you some modules because again, we want to educate. Again, that's for the veterinarians. For the academies, we're going to have to just do them more frequently. I do have a counterpart who's not a veterinarian, but she does kind of this, it is a business. So we also have to educate on how to sell. So we are currently recruiting more individuals that can fill that role. Me as the doctor, I kind of go in for the first section of that academy day, and then the rest is left to my counterpart. So we're currently looking, we're expanding, we're hiring a lot. It's growing. And so far we're making it work, but it's going to be a matter of probably increasing frequency. Nothing replaces having the vet in front of you so that you can ask questions versus here you go, I can send you a module, but it's not going to be as interactive.
So your vets that you guys have, it looks like you guys decided to hire in-house, which I think is a terrific move as far as just preserving your brand and, having control over your brand too, which is huge. If you start outsourcing stuff to third parties, and I get that at the beginning, but if you can get away with having most of the staff in-house, I think that's super powerful.
We definitely do have open hiring, but the amount of internal movement is definitely there. The opportunity is there. In regards to my role, growing this education department is something that I can certainly see in the future. And, you mentioned scaling. How do we scale it? Do we make this an interactive online session for those individuals? Because again, nothing replaces a live interaction. Just like we're doing this podcast live in front of each other, nothing replaces the body language. Nothing replaces your intonation. Nothing replaces the ability to have us in front of each other to bounce energy off of. So I could see it growing maybe in that scale. We are looking for other veterinarians as well, particularly on the East Coast. Not sure that we're going to pass along the educational role, and this is like the function that I do with our academies necessarily, but we need help. So we are looking. And it's just finding kind of the unicorn. And my medical director, Dr. Kendra Scheibe, she refers to me as the unicorn because I'm one of these oddball vets that doesn't mind speaking in public, doesn't mind, TV appearances, radio appearances, travel. I'm very fortunate the way my life is set up that I've got the support system at home, my husband, to do that. But it's hard. It's hard finding vets that are willing to make the move as well because we're so trained to focus on clinical medicine versus everything else.
That is true. When I thought about you and we've been following you, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, you see at the very top is self-actualization. Do you feel like you've kind of reached that? Are you striving to kind of have all of your work, hobbies, things that you do on the side, personal, etc., all in one place? Is that something that you really work at?
Okay, I'm freaking out a little bit about that question because it's a really exciting question for me. It's coming together. It's coming together. I'm in a point in my life where, people talk about balance, and I'm kind of voicing this out to the veterinarians out there and anybody actually. People talk about balance, and the more I've tried to balance in my life, the more I've struggled. And I've found that you've got to find a way to integrate the things that you like to do. Integrate them, put them together, make them work with each other versus I'm trying to do this one thing at one point and then I'm trying to do the other thing and I'm thinking about the one thing, but that just gets overwhelming. So I've finally been fortunate enough to design my life, and it's still work in progress, where, oh my gosh, I'm abiding by my oath as a veterinarian, right? Taking care of the pets or any animal, but also helping to take care of public health in a different way, with a twist, kind of. And me leading as example as a professional athlete. So no, I'm in a point in my life, a lot of magic is going on, and I'm kind of woo-woo spiritual, but integration, it's been happening. A lot of doors have been opening. A lot of veils have been lifting for me.
Wow.
Where I've been able to see that I kept myself in a box for a really long time. And now with being on board with Just Food for Dogs, that has helped me flourish. This position has helped me flourish in all aspects in life.
Sean is super flexible then. He lets you kind of do your thing, and it's to have that kind of autonomy. That is a dream, right?
Oh, I've been so fortunate. And not only Sean, but the whole team, you know, Sean, Dr. Oscar Chavez, Dr. Kendra Scheibe, all of them. They have been so supportive of my personal dreams and goals, as well as obviously whatever I need to do to be my best within the company. Because this role, it's like you're always on. You're always on.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I haven't worked in the past year. I haven't worked, you know, when we label work.
Yep.
It's been such a joyful process to grow and not be micromanaged, have the autonomy where, and there's trust amongst us as well. So I remember during my interview, I had to mention, hey, Sean, and to Dr. Chavez and to Dr. Scheibe, hey, so if you look me up, because most companies are going to do that with a new hire, you may find some photos on the internet. Now, guys, this isn't going to be as bad as you think. But due to the nature of my sport, there may be some things that look a bit suggestive or you know, may ruffle some feathers. And the first thing out of Sean's mouth was, wait, you're a bodybuilder? That's great. That means you're disciplined and organized.
Wow.
And that was so vivid to me. And I remember, you know, it's so clear as day that I thought, wow, I am one lucky girl. I'm part of the cool kids and they like me.
That's really amazing. So the IFFB is that?
IFBB.
IFBB.
Yeah.
That's not a vet fancy acronym, is it?
No, not at all. No, it's.
What does that stand for?
The IFBB stands for International Federation of Bodybuilding, and I am fortunate enough to be a member.
That's really amazing. And how long have you been doing that for?
I earned my professional status within the sport in 2015.
Wow, that's
in Las Vegas.
That's recent.
It's recent. Yeah. Recent relative to, you know, a lot of other things. But I've been doing the sport competitively since 2014, early 2014. Okay. As soon as I moved to California, the mecca of bodybuilding.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride. A good one. A good one.
Well, the cool thing is that you can combine everything that you love to do in one place, which is, I think a lot of people strive for that. It's almost like you have to take a step back. And like you mentioned something about designing your life. When you thought about designing your life, how did you actually do it? Is it something that you wrote down? I know for all of us, there's always something in the back of my head that I know that I want to do at some point. But I've put this limited belief system in place where, you know what, once I do this, then I can do that, right? How did you overcome that?
Making really scary moves, like
really? Yeah.
Quitting a job that I'd never quit at a job before. So I'll backtrack though to my early childhood. I always had these visions and I was, so to give you guys some preface, I was raised as an only child. I'm a single mom, only child. She didn't know the language. We struggled quite a bit. I get my hustle from her. My mom worked really hard to make sure that I could get ahead and make sure that no matter what I wanted to do, I would have the resources to do it. And so I had that solid background, that example for me very early on as a mentor. As a kid, I remember the things that I really clearly remember that were part of me and who I was. I just couldn't talk about them, or I didn't have the confidence to talk about them. Was one, I had this intense connection with animals non-verbally, and I could never really explain it to anybody. Two, I always knew all of us were connected. All of us. I just didn't.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I always knew every molecule in this world has to kind of come back around, right? So I had an understanding. Again, I couldn't really put a label on that or explain it to anyone. I just internalized. And I always knew that this is where things come to fruition and it just kind of weirds you out. I always knew I'm going to be on a platform someday. I'm going to be not for selfish reasons of me wanting attention, but I'm going to have this platform and I know it's going to have to do with media. And back then it was TV, right? And it's going to be TV or radio. It's going to be something where I can talk to people. I just didn't know when or where or in what capacity. So those were the very solid fixtures in my mind of things that I knew I was going to achieve as a grown up. I mean, I'm still working on that grown up part, but it was very clear to me. And as I went through the academic system, as I went through all the schooling, just working, I've been working since I was 13, never stopped, with the exception of 6 months in between me graduating and getting my license to practice medicine. But I never had a break. And for me, just being the workhorse, it just comes naturally. But now being able to bring those things from childhood, those visions, those thoughts, those beliefs into fruition is it's like mind blowing for me that I've been able to do this. And like I said, Just Food for Dogs has been one of the avenues for me to do it, aside from bodybuilding as well.
Yeah.
It's been cool.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book called Lifespan. And Lifespan is a book that was written by a Harvard researcher and professor named Dr. David Sinclair. Have you heard of this book?
I've heard of the book. I haven't read the book, but I have heard of the book. Yeah.
So I think I'm on chapter 2 now. And I've heard him speak before. He was on Joe Rogan, and
That's where I've heard of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, I love Joe Rogan's podcast. That's how I get educated these days also. He mentions a few things about aging, and there's some interesting stuff that he's part of, and there's scientists all over the world that are working on really, really interesting things. One of them is a study, and there's a lot more studies on fasting, the benefits of autophagy, and as you fast, there's so much. This is so. What I wanted to know is, can you maybe talk about that on maybe perhaps a human level, and how that could possibly relate to our pets too?
Well, I'll backtrack, not so much on the autophagy and that's cell destruction is what that translates to, or cell eating, literal translation. In regards to fasting, it's hilarious to me that we're talking about this because a friend of mine who lives here in the LA area, she's also a bodybuilder, an MD, doing her pathology residency, and she's actually exploring the research behind intermittent fasting and autophagy, literally probably that same research article. But the way it relates to pets, not so much fasting, because we're not going to put them through a fast, even taking it back to the basic elements of nutrition and things I've noticed with myself. And I don't have studies to quote on the human side necessarily, but things that I have done in my world to help me function more optimally, whether it's mind or body, has been cleaning up that diet, eliminated processed foods, and making sure that I'm eating a well-balanced diet. And I've seen tremendous improvements in my overall state of being for that. And of course it pertains to our pets, right? Of course it matters what we're putting into their bodies. They have shorter lifespans. We're likely going to see more of the diseases and more of the illnesses or issues in them sooner than we're going to see them in ourselves. So it's almost like our pets have turned into a little bit of, the canary, the canaries going into the coal mine, where they're being exposed to things. They have shorter lifespans. We're going to see more of the problems with them. And we are seeing a lot of issues with pets. Are we able to correlate nutrition every single time? No, not necessarily. But we do know, based on the research that we've done at Just Food for Dogs, that we can actually absolutely optimize their health by what we're feeding them, for sure.
You guys have been around for how long now?
Almost 9 years.
So you've been around long enough to gather testimonials, case studies, perhaps trials. Is there anything you can discuss, perhaps some positive stuff that you guys are learning internally that only you have access to?
Even though we've been around for 9 years, we're still learning day in and day out. And our focus, aside from education to vets and to the public and to each other and everybody within the company, that focus on education through research is a priority. We just finalized or are about to finalize a research committee where we have gathered some brilliant minds within the veterinary community, different specialties, where we are going to be able to continue to conduct research. Now, we don't have the funding just yet to do a lot of the big projects, but we do know we did year-long feeding trials on all of our daily diets for dogs. And we found some really interesting results with those feeding trials where these dogs it was a population of dogs that were enrolled that were healthy based on lab work, based in full lab work, and based on an examination by a veterinarian. These dogs were healthy. So some would think, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now we converted these dogs from what they were eating before, which was an extruded diet or kibble, and switched them to our diets. And we found that they had an immune boost. from being on fresh whole food. So we were able to prove that objectively based on the lab results that we ran multiple times, that these dogs got healthier and their immune functions improved. Also, anecdotally, and even with my own dogs, seeing the changes from going to an extruded diet to our foods, and man, the energy level goes up. I have a senior dog. She's 11, just did lab work. She's healthy. There's nothing going on, but she was starting to slow down. She acts like she's 2 now that she's on real food. So it's almost like aging has reversed. Coats are softer, skin is happier, everything's just happier. Other studies that we have done, our toxicologist, Dr. John Texas, just completed mycotoxin studies. And for those of you that don't know what mycotoxins are, they are mold waste products that don't get destroyed from the high cooking temperatures of extruded diets or kibble. And so he looked at different brands, didn't name any brands because it's irrelevant. Truly, it's more so about proving our diets don't have these issues with mycotoxin, but hey, extruded diets really do have an issue with mycotoxin. And that, we can go on and on and on for hours on these findings, but we know that mycotoxins have a lot of health ramifications. And if we eliminate that from these pets' diets, we're going to see improvements in health. We're going to see.
Kind of seems like a no-brainer, too. Mm-hmm. We grew up giving our dogs kibble. We didn't know any better. Now today, and I think the average dog's lifespan would probably be like 12, 13-ish.
Just about. Mm-hmm. Depending on the breed. Yeah,
Depending
for sure.
On the breed.
And the care.
Knowing this information now that we're much more educated, I think, as a society and in certain parts of the world, do you think that'll help extend our pets' lives and help them live a better quality of life? I truly think so.
And, going back to research and data, we're 9 years old, almost 9 years old. And I get so excited about the future because now we do have a number of dogs in particular that have been on our diets for many, many, many years, not just 1 or 2 or 3 years, but 5, 6, 7, even 9 years. I'm really excited for maybe in the next 5 to 10 years when we're able to collect a pool of data of dogs that have been on our diets for an extended period of life, or, pretty much as soon as they're weaned, they could start on one of our recipes, or chicken and rice, or our fish and sweet potato, which are formulated for growth, and then see if they are a breed that is predisposed to a certain problem. Do we see a drop in the incidence of that certain number of dogs of that breed that's feeding real food, using human grade ingredients and not feed grade? So I'm really excited about the future in regards to any of that data that we're going to be able to collect, because this is the beginning. This is where we're truly seeing a shift in the pet parent's mind. People are doing their research. People are really finding out what goes into pet food.
Yeah.
It's scary, and they're getting more educated. And education is key. It's power. And we can help them prolong that lifespan, I think, with the advances in veterinary medicine and the going back to the basics with nutrition. I think we're going to see a huge difference.
So you have, let's just say, we'll do a couple use cases. One, you have a puppy. I guess, when do you start them on your diet?
As early as they're weaned from their moms. They can start on one of the 2 recipes that we have that are formulated for growth. And again, those are the chicken and rice and then the fish and sweet potato formulations or recipes. But they can start as early as that.
And I noticed that when you go into Pet Food Express, there's a freezer section. Is it freeze dried, or how do you, or is it's all fresh? So I see that some of it's frozen too. How do you take it with you to go?
We have all of the recipes are prepared, and just to give you guys background on how we do things, each kitchen will produce 1 recipe a day. And we only do 1 recipe a day so that we prevent any cross-contamination from the proteins. Some of those daily recipes can have a lot of therapeutic effects for dogs that have skin allergies or gastrointestinal issues. So we do 1 recipe a day, and then we prep, cook, and package the same day. Nothing gets left out. Once we package into the little, into the plastic baggies, then we freeze everything right away. And we have 1 year of stable shelf life as long as it's kept frozen. Now, how do we travel with this? Because we don't use preservatives. So how do we travel? So depending on how long your travels are, you can either take some, if you're flying, you can take ice packs as long as they're frozen when you're going through TSA, and take, a few meals with you whenever you land at your destination. If we have a JFFD kitchen nearby, whether you're New York or Seattle, then you can resume your normal pickup, or you can have the food delivered. But we do have a shelf stable, which is called Pantry Fresh. So it's our shelf stable recipes. We have 2 currently, and it's for dogs only: beef and russet potato, as well as our chicken and rice. So that's another great handy option. Again, no preservatives. We have a shelf life of 2 years. And the reason is the packaging. It's the same kind of packaging you would find in like your coconut water or shelf stable dairy products, or your Campbell's soup, things like that. We have options.
That's really amazing. I monitor the FDA recalls and withdrawals, and I'll just kind of go down the list here of things that I see. This is so much fun, you guys, right?
It is.
So you've got, and I'm not going to name any brand names either, but product may contain high levels of copper, salmonella contamination, contains level of vomitoxin, a mycotoxin. Isn't that just interesting? We're just talking about that. Lack of sterility assurance, potential lack of sterility insurance. It helps to have the right team, right? You had mentioned you have a toxicologist. It's all starting to make sense.
It is. So the website Anthony's referring to, so it's the FDA website. And you guys, if you just type in whichever search engine you use, if you just type in pet food recalls and FDA, or Food and Drug Administration, it's going to take you to the FDA webpage. And that's where you're going to see the list of the recalls. On average, there's a recall usually about every 6 days. Again, all of this is public information, but the public sometimes isn't aware of where to look. So FDA regulates pet food as well as people food, but their focus is always going to be the people, unless something catastrophic happens in pets, like the melamine incident in 2007 or the vitamin D incident that occurred late last year. So usually they don't really get too crazy about involvement unless something catastrophic happens, lots of deaths, that sort of thing. But the FDA is who regulates pet food. And when we are talking about some of those that you were reading off, you can see excesses or deficiencies in certain vitamins, minerals, heavy metals, copper. If you have too much copper, and let's say your dog has a liver problem, that liver problem is going to get way worse. So that's a big concern. The foodborne pathogens, the Salmonella, E. coli, we're gonna find those more frequently with your raw food items. And I can talk about raw for days as far as the risks and the problems with it. But this is all information, again, for you guys. It's all public information. You just have to know where to look. If you get the information from a neighbor or a groomer or, somebody down the street, I would definitely question that credibility and reliability. Definitely go to the FDA website. You can also go, there are a few other veterinary run websites that can have some valid information, but talk to your veterinarian about what you're finding online, because Dr. Google can be really, really deceiving sometimes.
That is true. If you can game the search results, guys, it makes you look good.
Yeah.
AAFCO. What exactly is AAFCO?
AAFCO. So AAFCO stands for the American Association of Feed Control Officials, and it is a non-profit private organization. It's not government. Now, a lot of people think it's a government entity. Now, they do work with the FDA and USDA to get the legal terms or legal definitions and what's allowed in pet food and what's not allowed in pet food. So let's talk about the positives of AAFCO. Wonderful resource for those that want to become informed on what's actually allowed in pet food. They also do list nutrient profiles, and nutrient profiles are the micronutrients and macronutrients, so your vitamins and minerals, as well as your proteins, carbs, and fats that are required for adult maintenance for a dog or a cat, or maybe growth. And so they have all of these resources available for pet food companies to then go in, make sure that they're using nutrient profiles that are appropriate for whichever pet they're trying to feed. They will also provide nutrition adequacy statements. And you're going to see this, guys, in one of two ways on your food, on your pet food. One, you're either going to see a statement that says this food has been formulated to fulfill all of the AAFCO requirements. And what that translates to, you guys, is that the company made the formula or the recipe, looked at the references, and then sold the food right away, or marketed the food right away. So what that means is no pet had to eat the food or it be tested on any pet in order to ensure that the food is safe. Okay, so that's one way you're going to see it. The second way you're going to see it is a feeding trial. So you may see on your food that it says this recipe was formulated, or rather this recipe went through feeding trials using AAFCO procedures for dog or cat and was found to fulfill all those requirements. So what would you rather see? You'd rather see a feeding trial.
That's right.
You'd rather see the evidence that this food was fed to a dog or cat or other. It was safe. Now, for the companies that don't all, because not every company does feeding trials, we are very proud of being the only fresh whole food company that has done feeding trials among only 3 other companies,
Wow.
the big ones, the vet-centric ones that have run feeding trials. Now, what you have to trust is that if a company is doing a formulated to statement, meaning this food has been formulated to fulfill the requirements based on AAFCO nutrient profiles, then you have to trust that the company is actually going to go back after making the recipe and testing that food to make sure that all of the levels of vitamins and minerals and all the nutrients are where they're supposed to be. Because what we find is a lot of the foods, once they're processed, meaning not just cooked to food safety temperatures like Just Food for Dogs does, but once they go through the extrusion process, the canning or the kibble making, a lot of those micronutrients will plummet in concentration.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then they have to be supplemented back in. One example is taurine. Now, this is a hot topic right now, and you will find, especially in cat foods, because cats absolutely need taurine to survive, you won't find taurine in our cat line as a supplement. And the reason is it's a truly carnivorous diet, and we test everything to make sure all the levels are adequate, but we also don't overprocess the food. So we have naturally occurring taurine in high enough concentrations. But if you looked at the canned or kibble version of a cat diet, you're going to find that taurine has to be added back in. And that tells you, ooh, this is really overly processed food. So it's great they're adding it back in. But again, you got to think about quality of ingredients and how processed they are.
That's right. Why did it die in the first place?
Right. Exactly. So the more you know.
Educate yourself, you guys, because it's the food that you're putting in if you want your pet to live a healthy, long life, you've got to put in the research. Do you feel like the current state of the dog food market is broken?
It's a little bit. There's a lot of panic going on with some of the latest issues in regards to grains and heart disease, one particular heart condition. But I think it's broken all the way from the start, when we're starting to look at the quality of the ingredients. Now, this can pose a bigger picture kind of issue, but when we talk about pet food, and this is where that disconnect has occurred, and this has been true for years and years and decades, where what actually goes into pet food are all of the ingredients that weren't safe for humans to consume.
That is
so it's
insane.
All the waste. Yeah, so it's all the waste, and this is allowed. It's legal. They see protein as protein as protein. You could stick a leather boot, and that's protein, right? You could stick a leather boot in a canning facility. That's protein. And so there have been a lot of loopholes that exist as well in government. The FDA, for example, where there are certain laws and regulations that exist because, of course, they are responsible for regulating pet food or feed. But there are a lot of loopholes that will allow animals that have been sick before the slaughter process. Those shouldn't be allowed to go in a food chain, whether it's us consuming it or an animal consuming it. But they're allowed. They're absolutely allowed. Another more extreme example is animals that have been euthanized. There's a difference between euthanasia and slaughter. With slaughter, there are no drugs involved. That animals who humanely euthanized, or rather humanely slaughtered for consumption. Now, animals that are euthanized, they're given medications to help, them have a peaceful or happy death, because that's what euthanasia translates to. Those should not be consumed by anyone because those drugs given are harmful. They're meant to kill, right? They're allowed in pet food. And so the regulations that exist, there are just too many loopholes. And then when we, looping back to the mycotoxin issue, and mycotoxins are a big problem in the human world as well.
That's right.
When we think about coffee, when you think about any grain or any vegetable or carbohydrate, nuts as well. Peanuts, notorious for aflatoxin, right? And coffee beans as well. I know this is a big issue. So the fact that the regulations, again, are just not as stringent for the grains and the vegetables that go into pet food it's sad. It's saddening because again, you're going to kill the mold off in the cooking process, but you're not going to get rid of those, the mycotoxins. And that can create this false sense of illusion that animals are allergic to grains when that's not the case. They can only really be allergic to proteins. But pet parents are seeing improvements in health when they take the grains away.
That's right.
It's because they're taking away a potentially contaminated or adulterated, mycotoxin-infested or filled grain. And they're going to see health benefits and assume, oh, my dog has grain allergies. Well, that's not physiologically possible.
Yeah.
So it's about educating yourselves.
Oral hygiene. That's a big deal, isn't it, for pets?
It is. I'm glad you asked these. You're going down this route.
I'm reading your mind.
You're reading. He is. He really is. So oral hygiene. Guess where you want me to start?
Give us some info.
All right. So this is my specialty. And it's funny. I went on the gram yesterday because I actually had my teeth cleaned yesterday. And I got on there advocating, guys, get yourselves checked out every 6 months or, every 3, however frequently you need. But do the same for your pets, your dogs and cats. So they have teeth just like we do. And they need to be brushed every day. And that was one of the big challenges for me when I practice as a veterinary dentist about people coming in, bringing me their pets for a complication. As a specialist, I was seeing the complications or I was seeing the cases that weren't getting better. And my first question to the pet parent is always, well, how often are you brushing your dog or cat's teeth? And I would get this kind of deer in the headlights, wild-eyed look like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to do that. Well, yeah, imagine you didn't brush your teeth for 5 years. How would that look, right? Or, okay, maybe my pet's or the pet's teeth were cleaned 2 or 3 months before, but the breath is still bad. Okay, well, again, you're not brushing the teeth. Oral disease is progressive. Gum disease is progressive, just like it is with people. We brush our teeth 2 to 3 times a day. We floss. We go to the hygienist. We follow instructions for the most part, right, guys?
That's right.
Follow the instructions. Listen to your dentist. They always know when you don't floss. From the veterinary standpoint, we have to get more diligent. And I know general practitioners face this uphill battle all the time, but you get a puppy or a kitten, you've got to start getting them used to having their mouths handled. Brushing the teeth once a day. The research has been done and it takes about 36 to 48 hours for the plaque film, like the scum on your teeth, to start to adhere to the enamel. And this study was first done in beagle dogs back in the 70s or 80s, where they were looking at periodontal health and they were looking at tartar or calculus accumulation. And 2 days is about the time. Go without brushing your teeth for 2 days. You're going to have a little bit more buildup. And yeah, you could work at it, but imagine you let that lapse, that time period. So that's the issue we see with our dogs and cats is they're not brushing, right? I think it's because lack of opposable thumbs, maybe, but honestly, it's the pet parents. We've got to get in there and brush our kiddos' teeth once a day. Now, there are cases where that dog or cat is not going to be compliant.
I have that problem with my dog. Teach me a method on how to distract him while I'm doing it.
And so things to keep in mind if you have a pet that's a little, not a puppy or kitten where they're going to be a little bit more handleable at that early age. But let's say you have an older pet. Let's take a dog. And I know your dog's a little guy, right? Mm-hmm. So Pierre, how big is Pierre?
He is probably like 9 pounds.
9 pounds. So he's a little one. The unfortunate thing is the smaller breed dogs, the micro dogs, they are more prone to having oral disease, to having gum disease.
You're right. Let me tell you a quick story.
Yeah, go for it.
We adopted him, or we rescued him around 5 years ago, and he already had problems with his teeth. I think that he was kind of predisposed to just his breed, where they notoriously just have issues. He's a Shih Tzu Silky Terrier mix. So we took him in because I noticed that he wasn't kind of biting down on his food. So I thought maybe something is up. And then, of course, he had like the breath thing going, right? So we take him into a veterinarian and they had recommended we go to a specialist. So they take a look at his teeth and we had to have 23 of his teeth extracted. I mean, it's just insane. And I got to tell you, I was really nervous because of anesthesia. Should we be nervous about anesthesia?
You should
is it
always
safe?
You should always be nervous about anesthesia, right? However, going to a qualified professional, and most general practice vets are excellent at anesthesia, but the reason they referred Pierre, I'm betting, is going to be one, he's a little bit older, right? So he's age. So senior pets usually are a little bit of a higher risk because not necessarily because of their age, more so because they're more likely to have other conditions as well. And so also the extent of the amount of work that needs to be done. So again, a lot of general practice vets can absolutely handle extractions. However, when we're looking at that number of teeth, we have to consider length of anesthesia. So that's another consideration with anesthesia. It's relatively safe. We've come a long way. And honestly, the rate of anesthetic complications or anesthetic death is very, 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 very low. I mean, low single digits low, very, very, very low. Risk is always there. Having the confidence in your veterinarian or your veterinary specialist is going to be key. What kind of training do they have? Is it a specialty hospital where they have critical care doctors around, where if something does occur, is there backup, right? Do they have the equipment? Can they keep them overnight if they need to? So there are a lot of questions. For dentistry in particular, dental x-rays are key. Please don't put your pets under anesthesia unless your practitioner has dental x-rays, because I'll tell you, you're going to find about 60 to 70% of pathology or disease is going to be under the gum line. And I'm suspicious that with Pierre, with the amount of teeth that he lost, a lot of it was probably under the gum line, considering he's a small breed dog, where, you can smell the bad breath. You can see the junk on his, he may have had a few loose incisors, maybe. And again, I'm guessing based on my experience and his breed and his age, but 23 teeth is a lot. And those 23 teeth could have come out in 10 minutes, or it could have been 2 hours. And so the concern about anesthesia, absolutely valid, but it's going to be the safest way to get all the work done. And I bet Pierre was way happier after he recovered, right?
He was. One thing I noticed initially, it took a lot out of him. That surgery, it was pretty major.
Yeah.
It did. The recovery took a little bit of time, but he's doing a whole lot better now. I've got to admit, we don't brush his teeth every day, and we absolutely should. It's hard to get in there. He wants to bite down on my hand.
He wants to bite down. He's a small breed dog. He's not used to it. And let's think about this. If you're trying to brush your dog's teeth and you never tried before, one of 2 or 3 reasons could be the reasons why they're very reluctant or very defensive about this. It's either they are going to have oral pain, where something hurts, and I bet that was the case with Pierre, where something was painful in the mouth, and they're going to be very hesitant, very reluctant to let you in there. 2, they've never been used to it, and you're bombarding them with the toothbrush and the toothpaste and the paraphernalia, and your hands look weird, and they're not used to having anything in their mouth other than food. So that's another reason. And then sometimes temperament, sometimes they're going to be stubborn and they're not going to let you do the thing. Nail trimmings, for example, like you've never cut them in their lives, meaning like hurt them.
That's right.
Cut the quick. Yeah. But there's something about that nail clipper that makes them really nervous and aversive to it. So we got to start slow. We got to start them as young as possible. If it's an older dog and they are really hesitant, take your dog to your vet or your cat to your veterinarian and have a full oral health assessment completed, because the reason that you're not having success and you're getting frustrated is maybe something hurts. And if my mouth hurt and you were trying to get a toothbrush, and I'd be upset and want to bite you too.
That's right? True. That is true. That is a good point.
Yeah. So every 6 months, have their mouths checked by your vet.
We can be here for hours. We're going on in about an hour here. So let's do another one.
Sure.
Whenever you have time, of course. Thank you so much for coming. It was such a joy to have you here. Finally, we caught up with you. Finally to know. But I'm really honored to be a guest on your podcast, honored to talk about Just Food for Dogs and all of the wonderful benefits that you guys will see when you make the switch. Don't forget, we have Just Food for Cats as well. We also have a custom formulation service for animals that need something special. We have supplements. Everything is human grade, human edible, safe for our kiddos, our fur kiddos, with research behind it. We're not talking CBD yet either, right?
We're not talking about
Maybe that's another show.
We need some research. We need concrete data. But no, truly, I am honored to be a guest. And then also to talk about the other aspects of my life and how much enrichment the company has brought me, and then the bodybuilding gig on the side, just lots of good things. So thank you very, very, very much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, we really hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks so much for listening to the show this week. You can subscribe wherever you're listening, and we love feedback. So feel free to also leave us a review. You can also visit us on Instagram at Book with Pierre. Until next time, I'm Anthony Flores, and you're listening to The Shift, a pet service podcast.